How about now?
Yeah?
Yeah, now it works.
Okay,
That's
cool.
some technical difficulties.
Okay, cool. Sweet.
It should work now. It's too low. Can't hear the voice.
Nope. Grr, bleep.
Music is louder than voices. Oh, there we go. Okay, yay.
Okay, cool. Okay,
I
I
f-
was gonna say my friends put streamers on my door when I wasn't home, and now they're still there. Every time I open and close the door, it's been since March. I'm leaving them. I don't
Fuck that
care. I have
guy.
really nice neighbors.
Yeah,
So what do you
it's
want to talk
very
about,
low. Hold
Mache?
on.
Oh, it is.
Let me make sure that. How about now, guys?
Yeah. Oh, that's cool that you can get live feedback.
Yeah. Louder, boys. I don't think we can get it any louder. Let me check. Yeah, this is I think we can. Hold on. It might be clipping, but fuck it. It should be better now. I mean, it's not gonna be perfect. I'm getting this is like a new setup, a
Oh, it is.
mobile. I
Okay.
basically just brought it all within the backpack
Sweet.
to your place. So
Sweet. So I saw someone comment said concept art is dead, guy.
oh,
Yeah. So you want to talk about GDC talk real quick?
we can.
Okay.
We
And then I
definitely
want to
can.
talk about
How
your
many
drawings.
years ago that was?
That was like 3 years ago, and it got a lot of awesome comments on YouTube because people were like, "Concept art is not dead. How dare you,
I
sir?"
know, right? Let me actually move this down.
Um,
There we go.
but it was cool. It started some good conversations. But yeah, I think the point is, and the point is that you started this too, is that you kind of use whatever technology you need to
Right,
make the image look as awesome as you can make it look.
right, right.
And I remember we had lunch the other day, and we were talking about that, and I, Mache was saying, "Oh my God, thanks for the compliments." You were like, "Oh, thanks." You like because I keep mentioning your awesome art.
You're basically sucking my
I was
dick for
basically
first
sucking your dick for a long time.
for
And he's like, "Thanks a lot." And I
what
was like, "Well, that
first
was
10
3
minutes.
years ago. There's like 20-year-olds better than you now."
I know it's fucking sad, isn't it?
So he goes home and starts doing those awesome new those graphic novel renders you were doing in V-Ray.
Yeah,
Yeah,
shader setup.
yeah, the
Yeah,
shader setup, which is really cool, and that really plays into uh, like when I saw those, I'm like, damn it, I got a little bit sad. I was like, well, what about drawing and inking?
fuck
What
that.
about actual doing actual? What about the people who used to be able to do that really well? Because
I
some of those
know.
look like better than most drawings I've ever seen.
How do I set up so that, here it is. I don't want the screen to lock so I can see the comments.
Oh, okay, yeah, good idea. So how do you feel about that? The fact that I mean, when I looked at them, I was like, they have a sensibility. They look good because you know what looks good, but you couldn't necessarily draw those like that if you were drawing with pen and ink, or could you?
Um, yeah, I could.
You could.
It's just taking much more time, right? Like if the moment you start painting, you have to actually be painting,
Yeah.
and painting usually means that you're gonna make mistakes and go back and forth,
Hmm.
and especially like when you start introducing things like different angles and characters and characters posed in different places. Like normally, what you do is you would use your anatomy skills and everything like that to actually pose the characters and do all those things, right?
Yeah.
But then, why?
Well, that's an interesting perspective because a lot of people on the comments, because that was the first thing that I've done that was like to people that weren't necessarily fans. They're just
Right.
it's the internet. It's the wolves.
I
Thrown
know.
to the wolves. And what was interesting about it is that I think a lot of people are like a little sad. They're like, "Oh, well, I learned all this stuff in school. I learned how to draw and paint." Are you saying that those skills are like useless now?
So how about we talk about the learning itself? Because I
Yeah.
think it's a cool topic to talk about, and it resonates across pretty much all levels of experience.
What do you mean? All levels of art?
Whether you are someone who has nothing to do with art and you're thinking about being an artist,
Mm.
or you are already an artist and you don't know what to do next. How many times you felt like you're stuck in a rut? Like there's always a time where you feel like that, right?
Yeah.
For me, it was like last couple of months where I was so busy with everything else that I felt that my um like just the idea of learning something new sort of started fading away. I just lost touch with time and
Mm.
and that drive and power to do, interesting
Are you
things.
someone who likes to always be learning something new?
Yes and no, right?
Oh,
Yes and no. But I mean, I think the topic of learning is the one that, especially like because I have a kid now, and she's already 3 years old, and I see her growth, and learn about learning, because when you watch kids learning, you actually learn how people learn
yeah.
from like the very foundation of learning, right? The things that we already take for granted as humans,
Mm,
those things are have to be developed, right?
yeah.
In a human being. So when you see that, in front of your eyes, it's like, wow, like I never thought about a simple concept like this could be such a struggle for, to actually it actually takes so much time to happen for a kid
Mm,
specifically, right? Like I'll give you an example, and I had this in my THU talk. Like, um, it takes about 1,000 times to say one word with the meaning. Like, you're using the word with specific meaning to a child for him to actually understand what this word means.
right. For the first time.
1,000 times.
Mm,
It seems like it's a lot. It's not really a lot, but it is a lot, right?
mm,
And now you have to take into consideration the brain development, the traits, the genetics, everything like that that makes every single child to grow and learn differently, right?
mm,
There are kids that start talking at age of 1. There are kids that never talk until they are 3. There's like different trajectories for
sure.
learning for everyone. And you have your strengths and weaknesses, right? So all those factors come together, and it's just like there's just so many things when it comes to learning, um, and what drives you to actually learn, right? There's one thing that I've noticed that, and it's not really related to that topic, but it's related to a topic of learning, is that with the industry moving so quickly, it's so easy to get out of touch of what industry is doing
Mm.
and like really fall behind.
But there's plenty of people that got way out of touch and still have jobs.
I know. I'm not saying you're gonna be losing, like you're not gonna work at
How
all.
long will it take for you to not work?
I don't know. Someone asked if we are gonna be painting. No, we're not gonna be painting. We're just gonna be talking, guys. So yeah.
Because I would say, yeah, I have definitely like slipped in my skills. Like, I think most of the One Pixel guys know more about everything than I do. They're really awesome designers. They're really great 3D artists. They learn tons of technology. And only in the last couple months did I get really back into 3D for the first time. And man, it was an uphill battle. So
I know,
I'm
right?
almost like a beginner in some ways in concept art because I was still using techniques from 7 years ago, and now I'm trying to get back with the times. Now, once I kind of got over the hump, I'm working on an image now that is mostly 3D, which is the first time I've done this. Even though I've been promoting it for 7 years because I've seen people do it so successfully, but it's powerful. Once you have these tools, once you get over the hump of just all the gotcha settings in bullshit programs that make it so you can't do something,
Yeah.
uh, then I'm like, oh my god, I have this powerful new thing. For example, I was setting up this scene and I was looking at clips from Game of Thrones to see, which is a TV show that I enjoy, to see how they do lighting.
I think everyone knows what Game of Thrones is already.
For the two people that have never heard of Game of Thrones, no spoilers. Uh, that I was ended up doing the lighting like a production designer because I was looking at every scene and seeing how, and in the interiors in Game of Thrones, I was capturing a bunch of scenes from oh, sorry, I hit the table, from Craster's Keep. You remember Craster's Keep? So how do they light interiors? It's always with this blue ambient light coming from one direction, and then they always have fire in the shot, whether it's a candle or a flickering flame to add interest, and then they have glowing warm light on the character from the fire. But I can guarantee you that light on them is not actually from the fire, but you never question it. They're like putting lights there and get it. And sometimes the fire is flickering and the
I
light
guess it
on them is
depends on the
smooth.
production designer and director, right? I
Sure,
mean, some of the scenes I'm pretty sure are set up correctly, and there is quite a bit of green screen going on every now
sure,
and then too. So
sure. But like sometimes the fire is flickering and the light on their face isn't because it's a scene where they need to have a calm conversation. But it's also much brighter than it would be. But you never even think about it. Anyway, I got into 3D and I started moving area lights and posing things around to try to. I'm like, oh, I can do whatever I want. After watching Game of Thrones, I was like, oh, I'm a production designer. For my one shot, I can put the lights anywhere I want to
Yeah,
make it
you
look
can
cool.
set up a scene. Like once you learn 3D to a certain degree, you can start setting up scenes and sort of like model the shot, right? Like
Mm.
get enough information there. Doesn't have to be a finished image. Can be just um, boxes and shit. But with the correct lighting and setup, you actually understand what the scene's going to look like.
What's weird is that this technology that got rid of drawing, like it made it so that
Hmm.
in this case I didn't draw out this scene. It allowed me to learn some new things. The technology actually educated me about the way something can possibly look, and that was just in lighting. Not to mention like the depth of the shot had all this depth that was a happy accident. I
Right.
put all these like bridges and things in the background that started making their own shapes, and the composition ended up being informed by the 3D happy accidents. So
Yeah.
my point is, the technology informs the art a lot of times, even though it seems like, oh well, now I'm losing my desire and I'm losing the ability to draw on this image.
Well, I mean, you said like why not drawing? Then I could argue and say like I guess I don't know when rasters and screening was developed for like mangas,
Right,
but there was a time where that didn't exist, right?
right.
So when someone invented that shit, I'm pretty sure it was a person saying like, "Well, this is cheating."
Yeah, yeah. Or the fact that we're drawing on the computer.
Right. I mean,
How about that?
when there's one interesting phenomenon that happened that made the transition from pencil to Photoshop to be less painful than transition from Photoshop to using photos,
Oh,
and
what's
that
that?
thing is social media,
Oh, really?
right? Because when did most people start using photos in their paintings? Around 2008, 9, right? That's where it actually sort of skyrocketed.
Well,
Because back
you were the first person I saw do it not crappily.
Right, but before, there was a lot of people doing it before, and the interesting part was like you couldn't tell, like, did he
Oh,
use
really?
photo? Did he use photo there or not? Like, there's a couple of artists I can't remember names, but were clearly using 3D photos in their
Mm.
painting, like clearly, and like in the hindsight, right? But back then you had no information whether that was true or not.
Yeah.
I mean, Dylan Cole was using photos for his matte paintings for Lord of the Rings, right?
Sure. But matte
And
paintings were intended to look photographic, so
right,
that was
but a
different.
lot of people taught like unless you were in the industry and you knew how those things are done for like, and I'm talking about majority of people just don't know how things are done.
Yeah.
You were saying, oh my god, it's such a beautiful painting. Oh my
Yeah, it's
god, they're
amazing.
so good, right? Like pixel fuck everything.
Yeah.
That's what I thought. Like
Yeah,
that's
but
what
they
I
just use
thought.
the one pixel brush for everything.
Exactly, right?
Bloop,
Um,
bloop.
but the moment the social media started to, you know, be more present in our lives, I think the more information flow appeared as well, and then you had that outrage of like, oh my god, you're cheating with photos, right?
Yeah. Outrage. Outrage is
Outrage,
funny because people are outraged a lot about a lot of things
right?
nowadays. Like social media has had that detrimental effect. I don't know if you guys heard, but Donald Trump is president, and a lot of what happens online now is just based on people loving to hate because it feels good, because you feel right, or you
It's
feel
just a lot of
like you
like
know what
super
you're doing.
bitter, fucking
But
Cheeto finger
it's true. But don't we all have that a
talks
little
that
bit?
just
Like
sit
when I'm
there and
scrolling through the news,
yeah.
I,
I
I,
don't I don't scroll
you
through
don't
the
throw
news.
scroll through the news,
No,
but
I haven't
I,
been
t-
looking at
I
news for
turned off.
past fucking 3 years. I
It's a good
think.
idea. I turned off all news on my phone and everything. I just watch the news that I pay for, which is the New York Times. I don't know if it's the best news, but I decided I'm going to pay for one, and I'm only going to check that. And so in the morning, I go and because I'm just busy on my phone, and I sit there and I open it and I start scrolling through. And the New York Times, at least, is trying to be good journalism, right? So a lot of the articles,
Trying
they're doing their
keyword.
best. They're journalists that are doing their best, and they have a reputation, which matters for good journalism. So I'm scrolling through, but there's nothing that fun to look
Right.
at.
Yeah.
And I keep scrolling, and I inadvertently always end up clicking on the things that make me outraged because I want to be
I
outraged.
know, right?
And
You just
outrage
want to
is
be
a
like boiling
really,
inside and
yeah, I'm full of hate, and I want to put that hate onto something, and I want to feel right.
right.
I think, yeah, social media, as an aside, like you're saying right now, is really all about feeding people anger because they crave it.
The way it's designed is to spark your dopamine. That's
Mm,
that's the only reason social media, like, it's basically designed for you to scroll.
right.
It's not to like contact and talk with people. Like, that's like a secondary thing. That's
Sure.
like a byproduct,
Yeah.
you know.
Barely. Like, oh, to
I
connect with
mean,
your
it was
friends
designed
and
to do that thing, but then,
like, hey,
let's
Janet, I just wanted to see how your pregnancy went.
but
Look
then,
at this
like, let's
post.
actually make money out of social media and fucking feed you with everything.
Yeah.
But that's how it's designed, right? It's designed to make you look at it all the time.
Yeah.
It's like almost an extension of your life at
So
this point,
I
right?
think a really good takeaway, just in general, this is for life, is if you read something online and you're outraged, that thing was designed to make you outraged. So take a
Exactly.
deep breath, look into what you're finding out about, and it's a little tangential to concept art, but I think this is an important thing for
It
your
is.
focus, concentration in your life.
But how it connects, like, as I said, like, because we started with the idea of, like, I'm doing those 3D manga shaders and what. I mean, they are not
Yeah.
even close to what you can do with paper, and especially like really good artists can do, right? There's some technical difficulties I'm trying to like hop over.
But the hair shapes, I don't know if you guys seen it, but you can look at Mache's Facebook page and your Instagram, I'm sure.
Hmm.
But there was these beautiful sweeping hair shapes,
But
and
that's like from 3D model.
oh, you modeled that.
No, no, I bought like 3D model of that.
I see, of the hair shape.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, so the thing that the shader's doing is the lines on the face that looked really good.
Pretty much everything that is rendered. That's
Right.
what the shader does. Like the way, and I'm not programming anything, right? That don't fucking get me wrong on that. I'm not like a programmer. I'm just basically moving nodes and connecting correct nodes in correct way
In
and
V-Ray.
using correct textures in order to them being rendered in a proper way, right?
Sure.
There's just a certain way you can set up things to make them look in a
Yeah, I mean, I don't know
specific
what you're
way,
talking
right?
about, but yes, I assume
It's
you know
like
what you're talking
you know
about.
how shader works. You have a diffuse texture, you have specular or reflection, right? You
Yeah,
have the normal maps and you have displacement maps, all of those things, right?
sure.
And then you have different modifiers to how those things behave.
And you can mess with those in V-Ray.
Right. And in
Can you mess with them in any?
in any 3D software that has a rendering engine,
Hmm.
pretty much, right?
Hmm.
Like even in you use Modo, right?
Yeah.
You play with Modo. Like even in Modo, I think there is like a very primitive. I haven't been using Modo for like fucking years now, so I
Okay.
don't know how it changed. But I mean, you can get V-Ray for Modo for that matter. But even in Modo, you can start setting up nodes and you know
Sure.
and set up those things to make them look the way you want them to look,
But the
right?
point is, you knew which shapes looked good, so you bought the hair that looked cool, that you thought
Right,
the shapes looked
right.
nice,
Yeah,
and then you were looking at other mangas and seeing what they did,
yeah.
and then you were messing with the technology in order to try to get a look that you knew you liked, but using a
Right.
different road.
And
to get there.
the reason, I mean, there's two reasons why I'm doing this, and it comes back to learning, right? Um, first, for me, it's exciting because I'm trying to push a boundary in an area that I haven't seen many people doing that. I'm pretty sure there are artists that already done what I've done, right? And
I
are
haven't seen
using
it
it.
before.
I wouldn't be surprised if if majority of the anime or manga industry is already using that technique. I mean, there's manga studio. It's Clip Studio Art.
I wouldn't be
however it's
surprised
called,
if they would never
which
use it and
basically
never heard
makes
of it.
mangas, like making mangas, so much easier because they have like filters for all the halftones and everything.
Sure.
Like it's already a preset that you could just click and apply.
Yeah.
It's so easy, like to do it in 2D software. So my philosophy for that was, because I like to work in 3D, and I've learned 3D, a couple of years ago, and it's becoming more and more integral tool for pretty much everything I do. Some of the projects I worked on had like 80, 90% or even 100% of 3D, like no Photoshop, right? Because this is where the industry is moving.
It is moving that way.
It's moving slowly. It's moving slower than I think most people expected at this point, I would say.
Yeah.
But it's still moving in that direction, and it's just like weeding out 2D elements, slowly but surely.
One aside I wanted to point out, because I had commented on this on YouTube, is that some people a lot of young students are really sad about that. They're like, well, that sucks. That are you saying that I don't have to draw? I don't have to learn about drawing anymore? And one
Yeah.
of the examples I used was in Moto. Let's say you were placing a light, a directional light or a spotlight in a scene. You would move it within the frame, and you would see the kind of cool shapes that it made.
Yeah.
Now, what does that mean, cool shapes? Well, that's something that an understanding of what shapes lead the eye, what shapes
Yeah.
have like straights and curves. That's something you could have learned in figure drawing class from drawing legs and drawing the way legs connect to hips. You could have learned, oh, it's nice when there's a straight and then it turns into like a curve. And that's kind of an attractive thing to know. Now, if you learn that from figure drawing while you're moving the light in 3D, you can try to say, oh, well, that's a shape that is
Yeah.
pleasing. And the way you know it's pleasing is from your fundamentals.
Right.
So my point was to a lot of people is that your fundamentals might not be thrown in the garbage, but they're not going to be used in the same way. You're going to still have them in your head, and it all has to do with shape design a lot of times.
Right.
And if you're not designing something for Star Wars where you can make any shape design like a ship, because a lot of times you're stuck. You have like a cityscape. You're like, well, what shape design do I do in a shitty cityscape that's appealing? Well, you always have the light. And if you can control the shapes of the light, like Aton does with his slice of light, if you can control the light is dark and light. That's what you see. That's always something that you can use to
Yeah.
use your fundamental design sense to make nice shapes into an image.
Some of the people are already mentioning Chris. A little pal mentioned that yeah, it's like they already are using it. Chris is saying it's already been used in the industry. I know.
Oh, you're talking about the shaders for.
Yeah, I mean the way most of the most of the mangas these days are 3D, right? Like not mangas, animes, right? So
Yeah.
when you look at animes, most of like cartoons that come out as well are mostly are done in 3D, and they have their like shader setups already to make the line art procedural, like a lot of those things. Like when you watch Netflix Blame, right? Belame or whatever fucking it's called.
What's blame?
It's based on manga. Like
Okay.
it's one of the I can't remember who fucking made it. I'm so bad with names, but you watch it and you see it's clearly 3D.
Hmm.
It's clearly 3D. Everything about it is pretty much 3D. There's no painting in it, like no drawing or traditional animation. And yeah, it's already been done, but I haven't seen many of artists in our industry doing that or using it for their work.
Right.
I guess that's what I'm, trying to refer. And to me, it's exciting in a way because it's something new and fresh. Like there's so much photorealistic or super Craig Mullins painterly stuff out there already, right? So there's so much of it. Like
Right.
you get tired of looking at that kind of work, right?
Huh.
So experimenting for me and trying to find different looks and styles is something that I always like to do
Right.
and always like to explore. Like if you look at the portfolio that I have, it's pretty much a
Well,
slice.
What
of
I like about
different
you is I don't
industries.
enjoy that as much as you. I
Right.
just like to know what I'm going to be doing.
But my point
But I
is,
like that you do it because then
my,
I can
my
just do
point
it.
is, because you asked like if I like learning, or moving forward, like what do I like to learn?
Right.
And I like to learn unorthodox things and things that will make my workflow faster.
Hmm.
But I don't like learning for just the learning's sake.
Right.
There's you can learn everything in the world, but there's always going to be a diminishing return where you only get to like a certain point of learning something, and then you jump into something new, but then you never perfect that one thing.
I
Right?
think that's a really good point. I think in learning anything, especially 3D software, if you're getting into it, learn it. But at the same time as you're learning it, have a specific thing that you're trying to do, like a
Right.
specific image that you're working on, and then all your learning has a purpose. Because you can't learn every single thing about 3D. You just need to learn the tiny slice of things that you specifically need. And I remember the last couple months when I was struggling through it, man, it really helped to have a thing I was trying to do because I would learn one little thing and I'd be like, can I apply this thing to what I'm trying to do? If you don't have an image, and what I mean is a specific image you're working on
Yeah.
that you think this 3D or this thing could apply to and trying to apply it, I think that is a huge help.
Yeah, and one of the reasons I'm saying that too is it's like, you get those questions all the time, like which software is better, like which rendering software I should use. I think we already had a question about, which 3D software and rendering softwares you would choose. And I would say try every single one of them and
But you can't try them all. It takes
not
forever.
not all, but let's say pick the three or like two or three major ones, and then just try it for like a week,
Yeah.
each of them. Just see how it feels, because you know I had a lot of like a lot of people are jumping into like the Blender train right now,
Right.
right? There was a phase where everyone was just only doing Modo,
Hmm.
and then everyone is talking about Maya. It's like those things go in cycles, right?
Right. But I have to say,
Each software, I for let's put it this way, unless you're like fucking going into tiny greedy details of like some obscure elements of that specific software that this only this software has, and you can only do things that you can do, but only with that one.
for concept art, if we're talking about concept art, you
Right.
never need that
If
much.
you're like super, you know, into like one specific element, and you're like really exploring like the under layers of that software, that's when you might think, okay, maybe it's a good idea to learn, let's say, Cinema 4D for all the motion design things,
If
right?
you told this to me when I was a student, I'd be like, just fucking which one? And I would say learn Moto. A lot of people are using Blender now, but learn Moto because we have a Gumroad that you can buy with your money. That you have the money, and
Motherfucker.
then I have the money,
Fuck
and
you.
Justin has the money. Justin made a really great Moto tutorial for concept artists. I watched it. It is really outstanding. So I'm only saying Moto because I'm plugging that.
Right.
But anyway, if I was a
What
student,
I'm
I don't
saying,
want to learn a lot of stuff. I want to learn one
pick
thing.
one
Just tell me
software.
which one. Which one do you like?
I I use Moto. I use my like
But if you
I've
had to
learned
pick
to
one,
use most,
yeah.
but I only picked 3ds Max.
Okay, so Mache
And there's
uses
only one
3ds
reason
Max.
for there's only one reason for it.
What's that?
It from all of the softwares that I was using, it was I was doing I can't remember which film project I was doing, but I was doing one film project with two different softwares that I narrowed down. I think it was Moto and 3ds Max.
Okay.
And Moto couldn't fucking handle shit
Oh,
for me.
because of
The
the way
scenes were big.
right.
You know, I don't know how. Again, I was like fucking 6, 7 years ago,
Yeah.
so software changed, right?
Sure.
But the point was like, for me, that was a point where, okay, I can do those things in 3ds Max. I can do them as fast as in Moto, as well, and I have V-Ray. You know, and V-Ray was something that I was really interested because I knew like I want to have a really powerful rendering engine,
Sure.
and V-Ray is not cheap, by the way.
Right.
It's $1,000 for a license
Right.
to have. Um, but yeah, I mean, and I kind of settled there, and I know there's like, if I want to do like hair simulation and hair design, it's probably better to choose Maya because Maya has like integral, you know, plugin that I can't remember how it's called, but and they have like better plugins for hair design. If I want to do motion graphics, it's so much better to use Cinema 4D, right? But I don't do those things on a daily basis. Those are like maybe like little points of interest that I would hatch on every now and then,
Yeah.
and it's just worthless to spend all of that time to learn those things. Instead, you can learn all the details in that one software and then become like almost perfect with it. And also because you're practicing all that time, again saying 1,000 times one word to a kid until he understands.
Yeah.
It's the concept of
You're
repetition,
different
right?
from most people. So you're a lot less. I would want someone to just tell me which one, and for concept
And
art.
most people will
Yeah.
say that, right?
So if you're
Like,
asking
tell me
me,
what to do.
I think
I want to
besides,
follow. I don't want to.
yeah,
I don't
no,
want to think for
I don't
myself.
want to chart into the forest for the first time. I will just wait for one person to go, and then I'll follow them.
But don't get me wrong. When I'm researching what I want to learn, I'm
Looking into it.
I'm looking into it. I'm not just like picking randomly because I think this is going to be a good
For
decision.
concept
I'm
art,
almost asking, but instead of going on, you know, social media or something like, can you tell me, you know,
Right.
like asking my favorite artist, look, let's do this, right? I would still do that. I would like recently I asked like about animation in 3ds Max specifically because I have no experience with it. To people to point out what to do, right?
right.
You ask those questions, but you're almost like it's on the more under layer of, you know, different sort of trying to find those little areas that I still don't know and I want to learn, right?
Sure. One thing I wanted to point out too is
But learning is different for everyone. And that's a
Yes,
good point.
but I don't want. I want to spend as little time as possible learning as few things as possible to get my image done.
Right.
So I'll say for anyone who's interested, what I've heard is first of all Moto, but I'm biased because you should buy a tutorial, which is very concise, and that's fine. But also Blender. A lot of people like Blender, and a lot of my artists actually use Blender
Did
as
you
well.
start learning Blender?
No, just barely got through Moto.
So like, I know like Blender has a lot of like really cool tools, but I so far I haven't seen anything that Blender does that I cannot do in Max.
Sure. Well, if you already know Max, you're set.
Right.
There's also one more
And
thing I
that's my
wanted to
point.
point out.
And
Yes.
that's my point.
But but if you want to do it fast and easy
Right.
as possible, you like to explore. So you'll spend weeks exploring something, whereas you could learn something in weeks that someone else could learn in a day from your experience.
Right.
Right. So I want to do that.
And
I want to just
and there are kids that are learning it in a day
exactly
without our
I want to just learn
experience.
from somebody else without me doing the shit on my own. But one thing I wanted to point out too is that on ArtStation we posted this image on the One Pixel Brush ArtStation. It's called Clinton Rachel's, this 2-character thing, and we started this process that is even more wacky and bizarre, which was that one artist drew all the characters really well. She's got a great drawing sensibility, and she doesn't like using 3D, and she doesn't like doing anything technical. So we gave it to another artist, actually Justin, who did all the Moto tutorials. And what he would do is find a character in Daz, pose it to kind of match the pose of the character that was hand drawn. So the hand drawing was very kind of stylized. It was an in-between style. And he took the Daz character, posed it in a similar way, lit it in the way that was right, and then he used a liquify brush to stretch it to match exactly her line drawing. So that was a super interesting.
Or you could use ZBrush.
Or you could use ZBrush if you knew it. And what we're trying to do, and a lot of people ask this, is like, well, how long should I spend? Or you're using 3D to save time. We're not doing anything to save time. Everything is about quality. But having said that, there is a limited amount of time. So let's say on average, we have 24 hours to do an image. Not a 24-hour cycle, but 24 total hours. So like 3 days, 4 days
Yeah.
maybe. Let's say that's our budget for an image. Within that same time frame, we're trying to make it look the best possible. So this Daz technique of using Daz to pose a model and then liquify brushing it to shape, if someone knew ZBrush really well, maybe that would be even faster for them.
Yeah, it'll probably be. And then all depends also what is the purpose of, using technology, right? Because
Yeah.
if you're just doing a keyframe and one image from one angle,
Yeah. Well, for
then why
concept
would you
art-
go in ZBrush?
Yeah, for concept
what I
art,
mean?
it's so fast, and I know some ZBrush artists who have some ready set hands. They have a library. If you're a
Yeah.
ZBrush artist and you have a library, then yeah, probably it could work
Yeah,
similar
yeah,
in a
It's
similar
like,
way.
Vitaly would choose his
Exactly.
fucking but he's a robot, so it's a little different.
but having the Daz model and distorting it to a drawing was a really bizarre process. But in the end of the day, it ended up looking really, really good
I use Daz all the time.
all the time, right?
And I'm going to have those guys on live stream next week.
DAZ, by the way, for those
Daz
who don't
3D,
know
yeah.
Daz 3D. It's just a posable program where you can pose characters if you don't know. And when
It's
you move
funny
their
because like
arms-
when you go on when you go on a website now, it's like it's actually is not looking that bad in terms of the images that they're presenting.
yeah.
But I remember when I started using Daz, it was so much cringe, dude.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Well, it's all like terrible. The way Daz works, just for people who don't know, because not everyone knows everything we're talking about. Daz is a program where you can pose a character. You just have a ready-made character. But the cool thing about it is when you distort their arm or their elbow, their muscles deform to match. And you have sliders to make them more skinny, more fat, more tall. So you can really, and the characters look really pretty damn good. It's free for the most part. The only thing you pay is for costumes. And the costumes are like anywhere between $15 and $30.
Right, but you can do costumes in Marvel's Designer, which everyone fucking should learn at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah,
A lot of guys at One Pixel know Marvelous. I don't know it, but it's good.
it's so easy.
Hmm.
It's like, when you look at the T-shirt, right?
Yeah.
It's made of like front, back, and sleeves, right? And
Yeah.
then there's the sewing. The sewing.
Yeah.
You basically like flatten that, and you just draw that in the viewport, like those shapes, and then you pick, okay, I want to connect this and this, this and this, and then you put it around the character, press click, and it simulates,
Wow.
and it's done.
Wow. Okay.
And all you have to do is just push, curves to make, the T-shirt or whatever garment you're doing look properly.
Oh, that's
And the funny part is like you can actually take real garment designs, like layouts that you would use for crafting, and creating real clothes,
Mm.
and just copy that, how it's cut, where it's sewed together
Really?
and just and
So
simulate it.
if you draw out the template of where the clothes is cut, it will put it together in a way that makes sense.
Yeah,
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah,
yeah.
we use that on
It's yeah.
we
I
used a
mean,
bit of Marvelous on some Last of Us 2 stuff we're doing recently.
yeah. I mean, 3D artists are using it all the time now.
Huh.
It's like to go to. Like if you ask any character artist, that's where they start doing clothes now. I
Mm.
remember when I started at Naughty Dog, right? And not Shaddy, Hano was working on, I think he was working on Chloe, or finishing Chloe for Uncharted 2, right? And then he was doing some work for Uncharted 3.
Yeah.
And back then there were still ZBrushing.
Chloe is is the female
Yeah, yeah.
character in
They
Uncharted
were
2.
still like ZBrushing all the wrinkles on, a T-shirt.
Right.
And now you just like click.
Yeah.
You still would go to ZBrush and like remodel specifically
stuff.
for whatever you see on the screen, because sometimes what simulation does might not look that great when you look at the character running.
Right.
It's gonna look realistic, but you want to
But,
kind of
you know,
shape.
even in 3D, that's another example. You have someone who was ZBrushing folds, right? And he probably, Hano, I know, is really good. So he was probably really good
Yeah,
at
he spent like
ZBrushing.
weeks, right, on doing that.
And so then a program comes out that takes away maybe 85% of his job, but he knows what good folds are supposed to look like from
Yeah.
studying folds. So he can go back and you take 85% of his time away, and then spend the last 15% finessing.
Yeah, you take that time that you would spend normally on fucking doing the wrinkles
Yeah.
to actually maybe do better face, or fix
So
the texture.
exactly. So a lot of people are asking about time, and again, so many times people are like, "Well, all this technology, these guys are." There was a lot of funny comments on the YouTube, but many of them were like, "This is why all this corporate bullshit and production line shit. This is why nothing is creative." The technology helps you to be more creative because you're getting all this technical crap out of the way, and we're now spending our 20 hours on like the last 10% slice, which is
Yeah.
why when you look at concept art now, if you look at one pixel brush artist stuff, it looks different than concept art looked 10 years ago, but we're not spending more time on stuff. We're spending the same amount of time, but now there's all this technology that's helping.
Yeah, it's just it cuts the bullshit that you need to go through,
Yeah.
like the grind,
So you
right?
spend like 15 hours on refinement, and before you'd have to spend 15 hours just
On
building
making
it up, on
yeah.
making it to begin with.
Because you
And
didn't
that's-
have 3D to set
you
it
didn't have
up,
3D to
and you
set it
had to
up.
like fucking
You
do
had
the
to draw your
drawing.
perspective.
Exactly.
So you're so much farther along that now you're spending all your time on smaller and smaller things.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how Earth is going. That's the direction, because we don't hunt our food. Right?
It's kind of depressing,
I
isn't
didn't
it?
make this couch.
I know.
All of us as human species, we get more and more specialized and specialized to the point where, like, if the electricity went out, it would be Armageddon, which is a little bit sad.
Pretty much. Pretty
Yeah.
much.
I can start a fire with sticks, though.
If world goes to shit, you want to have friends that are hunters.
Do you want me to show you my sticks? Hold on. Take this. Take this.
If world goes to shit, you want to have friends that are hunters.
Right, they can hunt with bow and arrow.
Yeah. Fucking Shaddy. But yeah, going back to your guys' question, 3D code is good. ZBrush is. Ooh.
Okay, this is my hunting with sticks. Okay,
This
can I
is
show you? You have to
so-
talk while I do this.
This is so bad, dude.
It's like this. This is just for everyone who wants to know. Actually, I'm gonna.
This is embarrassing, actually.
No, it's not. We need to talk about something that's not concept art.
I know, but this is actually embarrassing.
I'm gonna show you.
Like you would want to have a compound bow or something.
Okay, I'm gonna put this here, just so everyone knows. This is a stick, okay, and here is the bottom stick. You have to find a dry piece of wood, and you put this in here like that.
So this is what happens when you live in Santa Monica and everything is so accessible
And you go
that
like
you
this.
just lose your mind.
Okay, and you have to take the stick and you go like this. I took a survival class because I want to be, because you're gonna die and I'm gonna be starting fires. And you go like this. Okay, you put the bow and arrow thing here. By the way, the teacher found all these sticks for us. And then you
Is your teacher going to Burning Man every year?
hold the bottom stick. Hold the bottom stick.
Is that kind of teacher that?
Hold
goes-
it. Hold it hard. Harder. Ugh. Fuck.
See,
Okay,
that's
well,
embarrassing, dude.
I'm not good
Stop
at it.
doing that.
I need to be over it more, but you get the point. Is that I'm gonna survive the apocalypse and you're not?
Nah, I'm just gonna call my hunter friends and like, hey,
You have a lot
I'll
of
suck
hunter
your dick.
friends. How's that
But you
going,
give
dick?
me meat.
Yeah.
You give me meat, I'll suck your dick.
Yeah, well, that's the
I'll
same
do
as
that.
getting meat, so you're
Yeah,
good. Everybody wins.
everybody wins.
Well, another thing I wanted to ask you about, I don't know how much time we have left.
We have how much time we want to have.
Okay, what is it? 11:24? Maybe
How
like
much time you want to have?
maybe
That's
50,
how much
15
time.
more minutes.
15 more minutes? Okay. Let's do
Um,
15 more minutes. We should do more of those.
uh,
We should have ones where you just talk shit.
well, you said something when we were talking about doing this talk, and I was like, what
Yeah.
topics are we going to discuss? And you said something about LACMA. What's your beef with LACMA?
I have no beef with LACMA. I just hate everything they do.
What do you mean, like the art?
What art?
Well, I wanted to see an example of what you hated and why. Do you
Okay,
not like contemporary art? Do you think it's bullshit?
Oh, do I think it's bullshit?
But I want to see a
What
specific
kind of
image.
question is
Well,
that?
I'm just curious if you've ever walked into a gallery
Okay,
and said,
I'll say one thing about LACMA.
okay,
When they have exhibitions like Kubrick, right?
yeah.
Stuff that you know it's fucking good, then yeah, it's good.
Oh,
But-
the Kubrick movie thing.
Yeah.
That's not contemporary art.
No,
necessarily.
that's what I'm
Okay.
saying.
Okay, so what?
If it's anything but like if they're doing a presentation of something that is clearly not them, that's when it's good.
So
And I have
you've-
no
So
beef.
you've
It's
never
just-
seen.
it's just-
You've never seen.
It's just not art.
And by the way, when I say contemporary art, I mean it actually means something. It doesn't just mean modern art. It's an era of art that is the most modern. That is like anything abstract. I guess it started with Duchamp with like a toilet.
It's when my
gallery.
daughter does painting and then sells it for $3 million.
Okay, but you've never seen a single thing that you thought was cool because sometimes there's
No.
cool stuff. Can I tell you
You
something?
you go in there and there's like a wall that is bent, and it's like a corridor of bent walls,
Yeah.
and it's called art.
Okay. So if you see something, this is the way I look at it.
Or there's a chair in the
If-
middle of an empty room,
If you see something,
or Yoko Ono fucking screaming to a microphone that you
Okay.
want to like literally take your balls and start twisting because it's less painful. Yes.
I think you're bringing up an important point, which is if you walk into a gallery, and I've gone to galleries obviously quite a bit, not often because I'm not that into art, ironically, but if you walk into a gallery, I don't try to like anything. I just look at it, and if I don't care, I just keep walking. But sometimes, I will say, sometimes I'll be like, that's pretty cool. And I'll tell you, it happened recently. We were at this museum in Venice, and there's a woman, and she made a full-size horse out of driftwood. Okay? And
Okay, that's at least craft,
that's what I mean. So
right?
let me just tell you
You
about
actually
this
put
image.
effort into
Right.
it.
So it was a full-size horse made of driftwood, but the pieces, every single piece was like stunningly formed and swooping,
So
and it
that
looked like a skeleton
that I
of
would
a horse.
consider art.
And
That's
then
like a sculpture.
it's like a sculpture, but
Right?
after that, kept looking closer and closer. I'm like, how did she make this giant thing out of driftwood? How did she find? And I didn't see any seams or nails, so I didn't understand how the pieces were connected. It turns out she fucking casts the wood in bronze and then paints it to look like wood. So the whole thing looks
Fake.
exactly like drift. It looks exactly like driftwood,
Okay.
and that's all she does. She makes horses out of pieces, but it's actually entirely bronze. And the craftsmanship in that was like some next level. And you know how much it was? It was, I think, $450,000. And I was like, that's worth it. That's because this would take like a year to make.
Yeah, well, yeah, maybe.
And then upstairs was who's that
I
guy?
mean, it's subjective because people pay fucking money.
Well,
the
in the
amount of money they
same-
pay for shit.
in
it's
the
just,
same gallery upstairs. Who's that artist that did those iPad drawings? He's a famous fine artist.
I don't know.
Anyway, he's a famous artist, LA artist, and he basically started finger painting on the iPad. And there's a whole gallery of his printouts of his iPad finger paintings, and they were an affront to art. They were offensive to me. Yeah,
Right.
As someone who's a professional digital painter, I was looking at them, and it was like, but you had lots of like moms in there. Not that moms are bad, but you had a lot of moms and people who don't know shit looking at it.
Soccer moms,
oh my-
LA
yeah.
soccer moms.
Oh, he did that on an iPad, and now it's art because the gallery framed it and said it is. And
Like, bitch, you go to movies and you don't know how art is done?
but it was the iPad finger paintings
Right.
were absolute. They were actually. I was offended, but the horse was like incredible.
I'll say one thing about those guys, right?
Okay.
They know how to sell shit or how to fucking intertwine themselves in a way that they're like considered like, oh my god, you painted this on iPad and you
Yeah.
made art out of it.
Yeah.
It's like you have to sort of figure out that niche, or it's not even a niche; it's the majority, I guess.
I'm
Of
gonna look up the artist so I can say his name so I can get in
right,
trouble.
but you have to figure out how to speak to that kind of population
You think
to
that someone is?
convince.
I would love to know who's deciding, but I'm sure that's like a
It's all subject. You know, it's a group thing. It's like the social media thing, outrage we talked about.
right.
You know, like it's like that's one of the reasons I don't look at news and I don't follow anything. Like if there's something really important that I need to know, I will usually hear it from someone
Yeah.
that like if the fucking world is ending, I'll know from someone that the world is ending. If there's supposed to be like a big war that I'm supposed to be concerned about, hey, I'll know about it.
Sure, you will find
I
out about
haven't
a
been
war.
watching news. I know the taxes changed because
Yeah.
I talked with my fucking tax person,
Right.
and she said like, "Yeah, you're gonna save more
And
money."
also, there's
So,
a new law that came out.
but
Trump did one good thing. He passed a law that said if you're dying, you can use experimental, untested medical procedures to save your life. That's cool.
that's cool. But
By the way, David Hockney, that's the iPad guy. Go ahead.
my point is, I fucking lost my train of thought. Right?
God damn it!
God damn it,
I keep
Shaddy.
interrupting you.
You interrupted with me that fucking
Oh, you were saying you
shit
learn.
art.
No, you were saying you learn from others. You're happy to you don't read the news. You look into stuff.
Oh yeah, I was talking about the outrage, right?
Yeah.
Like there's, and that's one of the reasons what I don't like watching news, and I just refuse myself from being part of it. Is you just like one person says one thing, and then everyone is outraged like, oh my god,
Yeah,
it's
that's
like
what it looks like.
right?
It's like the ascots. How dare you
How
say.
dare
Yeah.
how dare you say
Yeah.
fucking a word?
Yeah, people love to be outraged because it gives them an identity, and there's so much virtue
No,
signaling and
I just
phony
think
outrage.
I just think it's I personally think it's just people. There's two types of people, right? There are people that are inherently good, and they just make mistakes,
Yeah,
and there are people that are just nasty.
yeah.
They're just fucking miserable, nasty fucks
That try
that
hard
just-
to be good.
that just
'Cause
try to find like that
That-
identity of I'm outraged, I can voice myself, and everyone is listening. You know, like
Right.
that moment of shine, like. Yeah, I'm part of this group that is shaming this. Like, come on.
It feels good to shame because you feel
Right, and
You
I
feel-
it's
you feel-
it's the same logic, the same group thing. That it's tribalism, really.
It
It's
is
it's
tribalism,
really
yeah.
it's really that is applying to like this fucking contemporary art thing,
Sure.
where like one person.
Oh, that's what your point
Because
is.
it's usually one person that is considered to be a per se guru or group of people that just kind of like are making opinions and people are listening. Like when you go on YouTube and you watch YouTube, like you watch what is trending usually on YouTube, it's someone's opinion about something. It's almost like most of the videos that are out there, it's just someone making an opinion about something, right?
Yeah,
They're not making anything. They're just making an opinion,
yeah.
and people watch that, right?
That's
That's
what
like the
people watch
most popular format.
Well, so the takeaway I think
So
for
that's the same thing with the contemporary art.
Contemporary
Why
art.
it's popular because there's some schmucks that have no idea what good tasteful thing is. They have
Yeah.
no sense of design whatsoever, but they fucking dress with scarves and shit,
yeah.
and they say like, and then
Well, there's
Yeah.
also an element of the overall I think for concept art for artists that are watching this, like what do you
Yeah.
what to get from that? I think the important thing is for me at least, and you have this obviously, is that when I walk into a gallery, when I look at anything, I don't check to see who agrees with what I think.
have you seen Chris
I
D'Elia
just let me
bit
finish my
about
point real quick. So I think it's really important to look at stuff and decide on your own what you like. I think that's true in concept art. If you
Yeah.
see a Craig Mullins painting that you don't think is as good as another Craig Mullins painting, it's okay. You don't have to go on YouTube or Facebook and be like, that painting sucks. You should never criticize.
nobody
someone.
cares, by the way.
Yeah, no, you shouldn't criticize anyone publicly, except for David Hockney. But the
You-
only
you
reason
can.
is because you can.
It's free country.
I did him because he's famous and not in my field.
It's
So if you're
it's free
famous enough,
country.
you're allowed to.
It's a free country.
But I
you can
wouldn't do it
whatever
in
you
our
want.
field. I would just say, don't be just like what you like and be fully free to not like something, even if it's done by a famous person. If you see something done by a famous or super successful person and you personally just don't love it and
Yeah.
it's not your cup of tea, then feel free to not like it. You get into trouble when you feel like, oh well, this person worked on a huge IP and they're famous, this must be good. No, it doesn't have to be good. It can be
Yeah,
bad.
of course,
Yeah.
of course. Look, half of the films I worked on are fucking garbage.
Mm.
I'm not even gonna try to pretend all of the films I worked on are amazing. They were cool for me to work on.
Yeah.
I had fun doing art for it,
Sure.
but it's like when you do a film, there's just, I mean, if the story sucks, like what can you do,
Right.
right?
No, you can. The story is
Right.
what makes it.
So there's always going to be like as you said, there's always an element of something, and you know, you can have your opinion, right? And you should, but I think it's a waste of time to go and spill hate on someone
Right.
instead of doing something. I kind of I've said this before on one of my podcasts. It was Tim Ferriss interviewing one person. I can't remember who was his name, but he said a really interesting thing that kind of resonated with me like really well. It's there are no statues erected for critics. You know what I mean? It's like it's usually someone who did something really powerful
Yeah.
in the world. Whether it was like powerful leader or something, you know? It was a person with some kind of value that has a statue,
I love
right?
that quote.
Whether it's a good value or bad value, right?
Sure.
Don't get me wrong. Like there are statues for
Saddam Hussein
assholes
had a
too.
statue.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm actually working on a bronze Donald Trump statue myself. So
But the point is, it's like, yeah, like create. Like words are cheap, right?
yeah.
It's so easy to say things, but then like doing it by yourself, it's a completely different story. Like how many times you read comments like, I would fucking paint that better.
Yeah. Right. Which
You
is
know what I
tough
mean?
when your profession, like mine, is to critique artists who are better than you. Which is why it's been humbling, like the last.
But
6
if you
months.
hear it from like a professional art, like really good artist, then
Mm.
like yeah, you might take a point, right?
Absolutely.
But
yeah.
if you hear it from like some random person that never touched a tablet, like
You know,
Dude,
that's
get the fuck
actually
out.
that's another important point. I think that someone who is learning, or it's a good takeaway, is that there's a lot of like Facebook pages. There's some Facebook pages where people put stuff up and they say open CNC welcome, like critique welcome,
yeah,
and then you read the comments and you see other people's comments.
trolling.
Yeah, well, people give comments, right?
Yeah.
And I have never read one of those subsidiary comments where I'm like, they should do that. Every
Exactly.
time I read the comments, I'm like, that's stupid.
It makes no
That's
sense.
not a thing you
Majority
need
of the comments are.
to do. Yeah.
I mean, I get the idea of like I really want to help you.
Yeah, so
I'm
here's
trying
what I would
I'm trying
say.
to think it this
Here's
way.
what I would say.
Trying to put myself in the other person's seat and say like, they take their time to help this person,
Yeah.
right?
But I think the point is, because I get feedback from people. Like I send a lot of my stuff to Eitan for him, so he's my like go-to guy. And most of the time when he gives me some feedback, I immediately am like, "Fuck you! I don't want to do that. You're stupid. This is not what I was even trying to do."
Right.
But his idea is usually right. Like even if he's like, I mean, maybe necessary like the positioning I'm not sure about, or he doesn't get something I'm trying to do. Always there's a takeaway that I end up using. So what I'm saying to you guys is, don't get crowd-sourced feedback. Find an artist who you like, who will respond to you. And by the way, Eitan responds if you keep emailing him.
Yeah, it's a
and
good
send
idea
them
for you
work
guys to
and then
actually
get-
start barraging him with
Yeah, barrage
private
him,
messages.
Eitan Zana. But if you can find someone else who's like up and coming, whose work you think is good, and you're a very
Should we
open
do a social experiment.
student. Oh yeah, see how many people we can get to listen to him.
Yeah, see how many people can write to him on Facebook and ask
Right, for
what
feedback.
brush that
He's
is
really
using.
nice about feedback, but my point is, getting feedback from one good person is super valuable, much more valuable than crowdsourcing feedback.
Yeah, I would say so. Like, it's like if you go to the doctor, right? When you look for a doctor, you kind of want to be sure that he has experience, he studied,
Yeah.
he's good at his craft,
Yeah.
he's gonna help you, right?
Totally.
Because you care about your health,
Yeah.
right? If you care about your art, are you
Yeah.
gonna go to like a fucking Starbucks barista and say like, "Hey, can you give me a feedback?"
And
You
also,
know what I mean?
by the way, I'll send a painting to 2 different really good artists, and they'll
Yeah.
have different opinions.
Yeah.
So just try to get one, and
And that's a
who you
tip
love.
for, because when I was learning art, I used to it used to be forums, right? So you'd post and people would post feedback on the forums, and it was cool times because people that would actually take their time and energy to actually get on forums was like there was way less people in forums that there are in social media, and it was way less accessible.
Yes.
Because why
It was
would you go on
hardcore people.
forums, right?
Yeah.
You would just go on forums specifically for art. That means you're interested, right? So there was like a little better filter, but still you would want to filter, you would want to filter comments and just figure out like who's, if you would see a comment from like when I was getting comment from like David Levy or someone, was like, oh shit, right? That's a person that know what they're talking about.
Right.
Or if I actually, the most I've learned from comments or from feedback was actually talking to people that were better than me, and they were sort of like mentoring me in a way.
Yeah.
And I know it's not as easy to do it today. It was much easier to do it when I was learning, because the industry itself was so much smaller than now.
Yeah.
It was like, I think the industry grew easily like tenfold
Yeah.
since I started. And a lot of things I've learned, I realized, there's certain things that apply to everything. There are certain things that just don't apply to the industry anymore.
Yeah.
You know?
No, it's that's really true, and I think other people were asking about attitude and stuff, and the people that I've seen go from not that good to really successful all have the same attitude,
Yeah.
which is they're like super. They don't have to be humble for real, but they're humble about their work. They show the work, and anything you give them, they listen to it. And so I think even now, the industry's 10 times bigger. People are a lot less likely to get back to you. But that also means there's a lot more good people. Like, if you send your work to me, I'm so busy, I probably won't get back to you.
Yeah.
Most of the time. But find out who the guys are. One Pixel. All those guys, by the way, are way better than me, and they'll much more likely respond. There's like armies and armies of people that are really talented. So if, like we were talking about fine art, if you have your own eye, forget who's famous and who's known. Find an artist who's not necessarily a huge name, but whose work you think is really good.
Yeah.
And then ask them. And then whenever they give you feedback, do the feedback and send it back to them. If someone feels like their feedback is being heard and that you're doing the revisions they told you to do, they'll help you for free. I mean, I was like that in the past, and I know Eitan's like that, and it's nice to help someone who is listening and responding.
Yeah. It's like if you get lucky and find that mentoring online, that's great.
Yeah.
If not, then there's
Learn
avenues.
squared. If only there was like some sort of mentoring system that was set
I
up.
know, right? That
Where you
it's
could
like,
pay money to be mentored by
and
someone.
it's like the best in the industry,
You're
right?
the best artist in the world. Yeah, plug your
Fucking-
shit.
Actually, we're gonna have probably John Sweeney's opening more mentorship seats,
Okay.
and we have really good artists coming up. But
If you want to work at One Pixel, we're working on Last of Us 2 mainly, where I think I'm concept. I don't know. As of today, we're on concept 500. I think.
I know, right?
I mean, like, there's never been in the history of the world more concepts done for a video game. But if you want to work with us, John Sweeney is the man. He's literally my boss and art director at Naughty Dog. So everything goes through him. So if you want to learn from a guy who knows what it takes to do that style.
You know what's funny? I remember like when I was back in Poland for like a year,
Yeah.
and you send me this, hey, check out this artist. I was like, this is garbage.
Which stuff?
Like you've sent me some like corridor, like was like some parking lot overpaint
Oh, that who did?
that John did.
Oh, yeah, John, you suck. Fuck you.
Yeah, fuck you, John. But you sent that stuff, and like, it was genuinely shit.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
Let's just stop.
Well, also, you know who
fuck,
else?
this is
I
so
have some
bad.
old folders
But
with.
since then, oh my god, this guy fucking in 2 years he went from
Yeah.
to like,
Holy shit.
yeah.
Well, it's funny because I was looking through some old folders with some Maciej Kusiara work, and there was this one where all these people are running from Last of Us 1, and there's like zombie stuff coming out of their head, and I was like, oh, this was done by like a 7-year-old? At the time I saw it was mind-boggling. I remember being at the studio seeing that some of those early concepts you did for Last of Us 1, and it like was game-changing. There was one with like a city street and banners that said All American.
Yeah.
And that was like the greatest concept I'd ever seen in my life at the time.
That was like,
And now it's like I might consider thinking about hiring someone if 2-3 guys quit. If I saw that now, you know?
I know,
It's good
it's
though.
changed so
it's
much.
good, but like just shit moves.
but I think I remember that concept because I think that kind of changed the direction in which the game is going.
Yeah.
Yeah, it like literally changed. Like, oh, we're definitely doing this.
Yeah, because the lighting was like the reflections on the
Yeah,
windows and the lighting was natural.
yeah. For like ton of discussions back then with Bruce and yeah, it was
Right.
fucking good times, man.
Yeah, it was cool. New one's gonna be good too.
That's what I hear. That's what I hear.
I'll tell you, it's gonna look
I'll
good.
tell you, like The Last of Us, dude. That's the only game that I played like through and through, like a
All the
couple
way.
of times.
Yeah.
Like went from start to finish a couple of times. It's so good.
It's a good game.
It's still fucking holding up. Let's see if there's any questions that
Yeah.
are worth a while.
Let's wrap up.
Yeah, get some coffee. Meet with with Eitan. I'll just quick
See if you
questions.
find any that you think
As
are
an
good.
as an aspiring concept artist, is it worth getting into a company for a more accessible position and try moving to concept tasks, or stay home, work on your portfolio, and aim for a concept job?
Stay home.
It depends. It depends if you can stay home and actually survive.
Yeah, if you have the money to do it.
Yeah, if you have the money to do it, do it. Especially when you're young. Like if you don't have any commitments like family and, kids or anything like that,
Yeah.
and you can and no it's different if you go to college and get yourself in debt, but that's a different discussion.
Yeah.
But if you don't have to work and you can still sort of like linger around, spend that time learning shit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, because I spent the last, now granted, I have some advantages. One, I have the money and the time. Two, I have Justin making awesome tutorials that focus exactly on what I do. Three, if there's a problem I have with his tutorial, I can call him and he has to answer his phone and help me. He has no choice. So I have a couple advantages, but absolutely stay home and do the work instead of work at a studio. There's actually, I think it's way harder to go in somewhere as like a 3D artist slash texture artist and try to make a move into concept art. I think that's an uphill battle.
I would say if it's a really good studio,
Maybe.
then maybe.
I don't know. It's still hard because everyone sees you as one thing. You might as well. And also, don't change your dream last minute. Like, for example, if you like doing concepts in Overwatch looking style, don't, and you have the time, spend an extra year getting good at that rather than like taking a job doing realistic props for Call of Duty and you don't care about that.
I mean, there is an argument to be made maybe that working in the studio environment will help you to get connections and
Kind of, but they're really
and
slow and you're only going to get a couple.
right, and maybe like more importantly get that rhythm of delivering on time and working in schedules. Like that kind of stuff is still important,
Yeah, that
especially
is
when you're
true.
starting.
Yeah, that's true.
You kind of want to be doing work on time, and I fail to do work on times every now and then, but you still kind of want to be the better you are at it, the more successful you're
Yeah,
going to
you're
be.
right.
But
And being able to focus. I know it's really hard to focus at home for a lot
yeah,
of people.
like
But
getting the distractions away.
getting
Oh
distractions
shit.
away, it's brutal. Here's a thing that I would suggest, and it's really important to do it exact like this. Not just say tomorrow I'm going to work on my personal piece.
No,
That's not
start
enough.
today.
That's not enough. What's that?
Do it now.
Now, or say tomorrow between noon and 7 p.m. my fucking phone is off. That's it. Between noon and 7 p.m.
Yeah,
And that way, at
I turn off
11
my phone when I work.
totally.
I close my door.
That's it.
I'm not. It's only emergency.
Right.
And
And that way, like,
yeah.
what happens if you set a specific time and say what you're going to work on? Let's say you start at noon, and let's say you dick around for an hour on Facebook. That can happen.
Yeah.
You'll at least know that you dicked around on the time you were supposed to be working, and that's even helpful. And also, at 11:15, you have a bunch of emails to answer, and you can't answer. You have to be like, oh, shit, I got to finish these emails because I have to start at noon because I'm working tomorrow from noon to 7. If you don't set a specific and exact time and say what you're going to do, it's really easy tomorrow at 11 for someone to say, hey, do you want to grab lunch? And you can be like, oh, yeah, I was going to start doing stuff at noon, but let's just have lunch. And then at 1:30, 2 o'clock rolls around. By the time you come in and dick around on Facebook, it's 2:30.
Yeah. Another question. Let's go one more. Let's see. Do. I'll read that one because that one was the closest to my eyeballs. How to start an industry in a place where there is no industry. For example, Dubai. Any good ideas? Anyone in the chat is welcome to answer or give ideas. I'm guessing like how to start to be in the industry, or how how to start an industry is like a question to Elon Musk, I guess,
Yeah.
because he starts industries.
Right. Oh yeah. How
But
to
if you
start
want to
an
start,
industry?
but if you want to start in the art industry specifically, I think this is a day and age where you don't really have to be in a specific place to
Absolutely
actually
not.
work. Yeah,
Yeah.
because
I,
you work with people around the
there's
world,
only 2 people in L.A.
right?
There's like 11 in Europe, and some in South America. I
Yeah,
don't think any two one pixel artists, except for the couple LA guys, are in the same country. We would absolutely hire someone in Saudi Arabia or whoever or wherever.
it doesn't matter at this point, right?
Doesn't matter.
Yeah, it only matters like the quality of work you can get, and I
Yeah,
mean there are
that's why I
places.
think setting aside the time to do the work and having a good portfolio that's someone asked on the comments, should I focus on all these different styles or should I just focus on one? I was like, I think you find the studio that does the work you really like and focus on doing that exact kind of work and
Focus
get
on
really
the
good
work
at it.
that you really like
That you
doing,
really like doing.
because the problem with focusing on too many things is like, one is you're gonna be too scattered to actually perfect any of those,
Yeah.
and the second thing is most of the not most all of the projects, all of them you work on, you're excited for a week or two, and then you fucking hate it,
Yeah.
and then you may be excited for a week or two again later down the road, but most of the time you actually hate the project and you want to get it finished
Right.
because it's fun to do one thing for a while and then you get bored and you want to move on with something else. But when you work on projects, you're usually on it for a while
Yeah.
and you do those things over and over. And sometimes you deliver work and the client is like, no, I don't like that.
Right.
You have to do something else. And you fuck.
Well,
You know what I mean? You get like super excited about a work. Like, yeah, I fucking nailed it. He sent it over. And it's like, no, it's not it. It's
Yeah,
like,
we recently
motherfucker. You know what I mean?
sent what I thought was one of the coolest things we've ever sent as a sketch, and
Yeah.
got fired off the job. No feedback, no feedback. Fired off the job, and we're not paying you. I was like, holy shit, how's that possible? But yeah, I will say about getting tired of doing the work because that's a thing that can happen.
It happens all the time to
Sure.
everyone.
We're on image 500, and I don't mean sketches. I mean realistic concepts. So you can imagine some of the guys, I'm sure, are sick of doing whatever Last of Us 2 is going to look like. But I think the point is you make it exciting for you, and there's a way to do it. Like every piece, because even as in art directing a little bit, I'll sometimes have to think of new ways to like, well, how can we make this cool? You think of a cool story idea. Like let's say you're doing your 100th apartment that's overgrown
Yeah.
with shit. Okay, well, how about I swear to God, in some of these things we just did, we started adding a little squirrel in the image named Jeremy. And Jeremy is like hidden. There's like Easter eggs of this Jeremy the squirrel in some of our concepts. And we want to create this little arching story for Jeremy just because we're trying to keep ourselves entertained. But you could do like, okay, I'm going to have like 4 soldiers and they're looking for someone who's hiding and that person is hiding over here. Well, that's only going to take you an extra hour or two to add. And you're going to spend 30 hours on the concept or 24 hours on the concept. So make it fun for yourself. Add a cool thing. Put a character in there. Add a deer eating. Think of an idea where you'll be excited about it. And then also when you're going to show it in your portfolio, you'll have a thing that has a cool little story to it, and that's fun.
One more question, because that's from like a super chat.
Yeah.
Like that's actually paid question.
Oh, okay.
Shit, dude.
Oh, this is a paid question?
Yeah, from
okay.
Chris Cunningham.
Okay.
How do you balance crunch with personal work? It's a cool question.
Oh, yeah. Well, I think
That's the last one, by the way, guys.
Okay. I'm working on personal work right now, and I have crunch every day because I have to run a company.
Oh, you work so much, dude.
Well, I do actually. Now it's heating up. It's actually heating up. There was a time when it was just Last of Us was our main client, so we was just doing that. Everyone who was working on it knew exactly what they were doing. They got it down, so there was no need for me. But now we got like 6 clients, so now there's a lot more work to do. But what I'll do is exactly like you said. I set a goal for like 4 o'clock being done with all work stuff. If I'm lucky, maybe 2. Hammer out emails, contracts, whatever stuff that I don't want to do, that I have to do to run a company. And then I try to get done by either 2 or 4. And then from 4 to 8 or from 2 to 8.
So you schedule your time hour to hour.
I'm just looking that like I'm watching the clock and being like, by 2, I need to be done. Or by 4, I need to be done.
Okay.
Now, some days it'll end up like yesterday was like a 12-hour day of 1 pixel stuff because we got a huge new brief. a couple clients, one's happy, one's not happy. There's like redos. There's trying to get money. There's all this bullshit. So yesterday was a full throwaway day
Right.
for me. I call it a throw in the garbage day. But on the rest of those days, I think you have to also think about. You just have to make time in your life for it and say, I'm going to work from 2 to 8, and then at 8 I'm going to go have dinner with my wife or girlfriend or hang out with a friend,
Yeah.
or plan it out ahead of time. Be like, hey honey, or hey buddy, I know you want to hang out tonight, but I can't until next week because today on Thursday I'm going to do a power day. Well, I'm going to start at 2 and I'm going to stop at midnight, and then you
Yeah.
get like 12 hours of work done.
It's my everyday, by the way.
Exactly. Yeah,
But
you work. You're a hard. You like to.
I don't work that hard anymore.
But see, the thing is, you catch the fever. Here's the thing that happens when you're working on your own thing that you're excited about. You catch a groove.
I know, right?
Like your fucking renders. You caught a groove, and you're like,
That's the problem because I have like 2 projects that I'm working on at the same time, and
yeah,
I should really be doing those instead.
totally. But once you catch a groove, it becomes easy because your brain changes. You become obsessed.
But I'll tell you one thing: like most of the experiments that I do, I've noticed that they end up being in my work, in my professional work.
Right.
You know, like the stuff I'm doing now, I can already see benefits of it, you know? Not necessarily this style, but just like the little greedy things that I've learned from like how you set up specific nodes to act in one way or another, that can be used for something else. And it just saves you so much time, right? So but yeah, I always had this problem, dude. Like when I'm trying to get personal work, it's usually when I'm super busy with everything else, and it's super hard to actually balance. But I think what you can do easily, or what works best, in my opinion, is to get what you need to get it done, and then whatever time is left, put into a personal work.
Yeah. And I think setting aside time too is important. If you
Yeah.
if you set aside a
But if you're
Saturday to work on
crunching,
it,
if you're crunching, like you want to still put that energy into that professional work, right? Because those things compound. Like if you can make your clients happy, they'll come back,
right?
and you're gonna have a lot more choices. If you have choices, then you're in a better spot.
Right.
You can actually get your
also
get
one
your
of the
better rate and stuff like
one
that.
of the
You know?
advantage of working as contractors, because I hire only freelancers, contractors, is those guys often tell me, hey, in 2 weeks I'm gonna just be away for 2 weeks. I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, what are you doing? Yeah, just working on my own project.
Yeah.
So if you work at a studio, it's hard. But if you work with us, and I think this should be the way for everyone.
If you work with clients, like you can set up time in between client work.
Yeah.
You know?
You could say, I can't start on. Every client is going to say, when can we have it? Can we have it tomorrow? But they're not going to, most of the time, they're going to be okay if you say, oh, I would love to do it tomorrow, but I'm not going to be able to jump on it till Tuesday, and I'm going to deliver the first comp by Thursday. Is that okay?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and they might hem and haw, but they'll still be like, oh, okay, fine.
If they want you, they want you.
Yeah, if they want you,
know?
they want you. Exactly.
All right, man. Let's wrap it up.
Okay.
It was a good one.
Do you want to watch me start a fire again? Should we try?
No.
I really.
I don't want.
I did such a sorry job. I'm really good at it, but it's hard.
It was the most embarrassing.
It was embarrassing, but I can do it. It's like hard though.
I doubt that.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
From what I saw, like
I know you need to like get
I would
your
probably-
body. You need to
you
get
know
your
what?
body over it.
the only reason I would come over to your place if it was an apocalypse to actually try to hunt you, because you're a little chubby.
Take my shit.
Yeah.
Me like Samuel Tarly.
Exactly.
'Cause there's a lot of meat.
People cannot hear you, by the way, because you fucking drop your microphone. So, all right, guys, let's wrap it up. And as Shaddy's trying to fucking start fire. Thanks, guys, for showing up and coming to the stream. I really appreciate it. There was a lot of you guys here, so I really, really appreciate it. We're gonna have more streams coming up next week. I'm gonna have Daz 3D guys over at the Learn Square Twitch stream, so we're gonna do that. And I'm trying to get George Hall on Art Cafe. It's gonna happen eventually. Dude, fucking don't hurt yourself. And we're gonna have Ben Hibben, I'm pretty sure, sometime soon as well. And maybe more of those, right?
Yeah.
We're neighbors now, so
I'm down to do it again.
yeah.
I'll start a
Let's
fire
do it.
next time.
Start a fire. Then fucking start a fire so you can burn your house. Cool. Thanks, guys. Thanks for coming, and I'll see you guys later.